Mhm.
Good morning. Thank you, Stan, for convening this after chat once again.
Mhm.
It's a lovely habit you've gotten into. I'd like to welcome all our people who have come to talk about what they were talking about on Humanity Rising. Chantal, you're new here. It's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. And please join in the conversation when you are so moved.
We
I
have
would. I want to welcome Ipswa because he's here.
Brian
And Kurt, I hear your voice. Talk to us.
Brian is too, and I'm so excited that we have Chantal here. This is the beauty of what is happening. We have Catherine back and so on, and we get to collaborate and cooperate. So thank you. And yes, Brian.
And Sally.
Sally, that's what I was going to say. And Catherine, you
Sally's
too.
back. My goodness.
Yet we are a group that have been meeting since day 60 of Humanity Rising. So some of us know each other. So this is an ongoing conversation. And every day we have a different subject. So this is, it's lovely to have you join us, Brian and Ipswa and Sally and Chantal and Catherine and everybody else. And so I want to open the conversation about today, perhaps by putting in to our circle the idea that they brought in about Pan. I really enjoy the concept of Pan because I talk about the one that we are. The collective I inside every one of us. And in my heart, I see the collective I as being the green man or Pan, come and created to care for her and love her. And so I want to hear what you think of Pan and this concept. Or something else that inspires you from today. Morning, Ed.
Good morning. And Brian, I really want to thank you very much for what you shared. And I want to thank you also for listening to the fact that we needed source. We used to be able to cut and paste from the chat, and we've lost that capacity. So that was very helpful. Thank you.
I got a text saying, "Great, I'm here now," and so
you might consider muting. Thank you so much. And that might have been Stan, but it worked. Excellent.
I'd love to hear, Ipswa, you have great wisdom that you've offered us. Do you have anything else that you feel that you could add to this group? Because this group has a lot of people who are very much activists, and we've created something called the Peace Lab, and it's a laboratory to discover the missing link that hasn't been found yet, so to speak, for massive peace. And I'd appreciate it if you have any thoughts.
Me to talk about peace or more about how to address the conversations of today. I mean, they're interrelated, but could you give me something a little bit more succinct to focus on?
Oh boy, I'm not very succinct kind of a guy. I love to be able to ask people to follow their guidance, because everybody has that sense about where and who we are and where we are. And you especially, I believe, have that sense very clearly.
Yeah, so when I think about the struggles of why is there not a lasting peace, I came out of the end of the Great War, right? And there was this great question about, how could humanity have gone to that brink, right? And never again. We just celebrated here in Canada Remembrance Day. That dialogue, remains vigilant in my heart, and yet I watch today, what's happening around COVIDity, right? And I see that the same tools around dominance, control, authority, power, right? Milgram studied these things, right? The impacts of wearing masks, how is it that here we are again, and the elders have said in prophecy, right? We would have 3 times through this cycle to learn our teachings and our lessons. So I see this as that 3rd cycle in my way of perceiving, to recognize our inhumanity and our humanity, right? To recognize what is really, really important. This is what I said in my share today. COVID has given us an opportunity to pause in the world collectively. That hasn't happened since the Great War. And so the invitation, I think, is to do exactly what you're doing, to continue to ask the critical questions and to start to co-create different ways of being and doing in culture and in recognition of our women. I see 3 beautiful faces here on my screen. I'm sure there's some more. I wish I had a huge gallery view. Oh no, there's way more here. I'm going to go to main view. And to listen to our grandmothers, to our aunties, because they have been charged most of the life intergenerationally to preserve and take care of the village life. It's part of their role. I wish there would be more women in our panel today. I wish that we had made more space. All that I know from the one source that I had in my life. She taught me everything that I needed to know about how to walk in this world. She didn't put up with half of the stuff that we see here and today. And here's the woman that taught me. Here's my grandmother. Here's the person I seek when I think about a challenge or a struggle in my world. And she raised 32 kids through the wartime and after. She did not have a man to take care of her. She didn't fall into any of those stereotypes we know. She was powerfully awake and enriched. And I wish that all of you women would have had that opportunity that she had in life. And I would rather hear from the lovely ladies in this room, because I think you have more wisdom than I will ever hold.
Ipswa, thank you so much. I appreciate your point of view. And I want to hear from Sally.
Thank you, Ipswa. And hello, everybody. And Catherine, your hair has grown a foot since I've last saw you. I think the thing about, there's so much in this week and it's been tremendous, but what I keep hearing internally is about making space for women to do these things. Because my experience as a woman is, firstly, certainly in Little England, we had no spiritual training about the feminine, nothing, eradicated. And then my experience of then being a woman is either of being over-sexualized or forced into mother roles and free labor, as Andra pointed out. So there isn't the time for the women. And my kind of wish through my parenting was that I had a partner who would share my mothering with me, share my parenting with me. And that loss of the nurturing male in our societies is a huge part of my life and will be inherited by my children. Because I hear, as a really mean, nasty little part of me that hears the men talking about spiritual practice and spiritual pathways and spiritual ways. And they've never been open to me because I've had to work and do the cooking, the cleaning, the shopping, earning the money. And lots of us here in this group are able to be here because we're older and we're not, it's here, it's tea time to feed the kids. And I wouldn't be able to do it if I had small children. You know, just really simple things like that. That's enough said.
Hi. Well said.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sally. I imagine 32 children would kind of cut into the spiritual practices And so I honor the grandmothers who have done it anyway. Because we are called upon to do that. That is, we are perfectly placed in our families to give guidance and direction. I look at Mother Earth as mother, not father. I like the idea of Pan over covering her, helping her to be what she needs to be to her children, which is us. And we are moving into the place of Pan, helping our father to take care of our mother. And we move into the lover role as we awaken into the role that we are moving. And I love the idea of being a lover of Gaia. It's something that I've been, I didn't have the raising of children in my life. So I was given the opportunity to spend my life in adoration of our great mother. And I have really, really enjoyed my life. Not as powerfully as I want to, because I would want her to be beautiful and in the best of condition and ready to be loved in all her wildness. But others of me have had their way with her. And so I want to do what I can to help her recover. So that's why I'm here.
I think what Sally brought up, though, has been a conundrum in my life. Being present and waiting, but needing that invitation, that space to be created, to come forth. Otherwise, I've always felt like I was mimicking male aggression in a power over sense, and that just was not comfortable. I mean, it seems like it's perpetuating. And so there's this caught feeling, though, that the potential is there, but it has to be invited. There has to be that invitation, that reaching out from the male to invite in and be willing to listen, to partner with. That's just, it creates a sense of impatience in me. Really hoping that will happen, waiting for that turning of the male and the extension of a hand to walk together. It's not a power over, it's really a partnership. And that is something that's really hard for men to understand, that partnership. I think there's even amongst themselves, it's hard to find that balance, especially for white males. There's always this rank, this hierarchy that seems to flow among white males, and they honor that even when they know it's wrong. Yeah. Even when they know that people who should not be where they are there only because they've been there so long and they somehow deserve it in the hierarchy, even though they don't deserve it from who they are or what they offer. And that lack of integrity around that is, because it's an unspoken thing, is hard to actually address, especially in the public sphere.
I catch the idea of moving into place, shoulder to shoulder with men. And we don't push our way forward for the most part. I'm talking generalities. Women don't push forward. It's not in our nature. And being invited to step forward is much more comfortable than being pushed into a leading role, you know, and pushed by circumstances is as vivid an experience as being dragged up in front of the class. You know, we don't want to do it that way. We want to walk shoulder to shoulder with the men. I've enjoyed that. And so would you feel more comfortable being invited rather than having to figure out a new position? I don't know. What about you, Chantal?
I definitely enjoy invitations more than inserting myself, whether it's with men or women. I find I can very easily go to observer space and listen, but it's not until I'm asked to speak that I do. And something that's been flowing with me lately is I heard someone speaking on Clubhouse about the kind of birth of patriarchy being linked to the rise of the alphabet and written word. And it just created a sense of relief within me, because I've struggled with writing and with whether in print or blog posts. And so when we talk about creating space for women, I think it's important to also consider for feminine ways of expression, which would not necessarily come in printed form or text, but more oral traditions. And the value is through lived experience, intellectual thought, and fancy words. So the idea that our institutions and what makes someone an expert is really within this system that does not have room for feminine ways of knowing and feminine ways of being, whether you're male or female. And so there's so much that awareness and wisdom that comes through intuition and lived experience and an actual connection that can't really be translated into words, and especially for me, it can't be put onto paper. So that's part of what has been flowing in my mind, heart lately. And when Shannon, you asked about Pan and the relation to Gaia, I was reminded of a conversation I had with a monk. He was a Hare Krishna monk, and he was explaining to me the relationship between Rama and Krishna, and that Rama is the feminine principle, and the idea that when we bring Rama into our kind of consciousness, it's about merging with love and gratitude. And when we feel like embody that love and gratitude, then Krishna comes with the spark, like more like the vitality and life force. And it just reminded me of that.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
May I invite you to receive our daily report? We send out an email every day that links to this video and the Humanity Rising video and the chats from both. So if you would like to be on our list, there's about 350 people that get this each day. You can add your name to the email address to the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stan. And
And
if you have,
while I'm saying something, hello, Sally. Hello, hello.
Hello, my lovely. Hello, hello. Haven't spoken for months, and now I'm going to take up airspace again.
good.
So much to talk about. The notion of women and writing. Some of the oldest poets are women. And throughout all our histories, there have been book burnings, burnings of writings, burnings of heretical writings, burnings of women's writings. And I put in the chat that we build our world from languages. So traditionally, painting, drawing, weaving, ceramics are all languages, and they're all codings, and they're all equally complex. So it's different times when different languages are valued more than others. But I can assure you that there were a lot of women's writings. And I also have a suspicion that in many of the traditions, especially the Hebraic traditions, the idea that women didn't write was a deliberate double bluff, because then the writings were kept and the traditions were kept secret, because nobody looked to the women to be scribes and to be thinkers. And post-Alexandria, most of that has gone. It then went in the book burnings in the medieval times, and then went again here in the dissolution. So we have a lot of lost knowledge, but then we also have a huge amount of genetic ancestry and ancestor memories that we can tap into through our physicality. The other thing that just keeps coming through to me today is the knowledge that we have about ourselves, and of how Pan, I think somebody said Pan is the oldest god, but bringing back, and I've said this, Stan and Catherine will have heard this before, but in the world of life and human forms, there were no male creatures before 300 million years ago. The first male creatures of any kind are marsupials in Australia, and they're only 300 million years old. Before that, every living creature was female. So we have this huge female a priori situation, and then very late male animals coming into that. So there's a distant memory of that at some point with Gaia, with all the mother theories, with the newness of the male coming in as the son and the lover, and that comes again through many of the myths. And has become our kind of dominant Western narrative. But the female that keeps coming through is therefore often suppressed and distorted. And certainly women do put themselves forward in situations and can be very pushy and very dominating, but they do it within paradigms that are acceptable for them to do so socially. So they'll do it through their clothes or through their nails or through very simple things that don't affect the greatest power structures. And then that's flipped back into being the sacred hall that women still control men through their sexuality. And there's a lot of paradigms through that. So it's, for me, it's a case of trying to pare back to archetypes rather than stereotypes, and then look for the connections between the male and female and how they've evolved from each other to each other, and trying to express that clearly so that people can access this information. And I'd really like to know how Ipswa would like to increase that narrative between the male and female. And then the other thing, which then I will shut up, is that throughout the week, I've heard talk. There was a brilliant quote from Rianne, I think, saying she's never had a genuine apology from a man. Did anyone else hear that? Has anyone else picked up on that?
I heard it from someone. Yeah.
And then there was a panel that was to be a session about apology that I think I may have missed, Stan. I might ask you to send me the link for that. But I really wanted to know what the feedback was and how the men felt about the statement from the women that they have never felt a true apology from the masculine in our times.
First, Sally, words matter. So I would like to erase the "I will shut up" and then add the words "I will allow for a moment of silence." And to answer your question, I missed that piece. And for me, it's one of the most critical things that we teach in young male initiation is to recognize the mother wounds that many of this generation carry that get in the way of that apology, that recognition of the disconnect that we have in this era and this time. So to any of you lovely ladies that are here, I do and sincerely apologize for the many wounds, the many times that you've been asked to shut up, to sit down, to not bother, that it's not your business, that you do not matter, that it's men's business, or leave it to the men. The horrific violence, the loss of the children, the loss of security, the loss of safety, the loss of place in our communities, in our homes, the despotism to have to not only do it all, but be perfect, be beautiful, and be available for consumption. The inhumanity that doesn't allow you the opportunity to fully live, as some of you checked in today, until into your elder years. That we failed as men to initiate the boys and the young men and the fathers and the uncles. And even now the elders, we have failed even our elders to help them recognize their role as elders in our communities. It breaks my heart to have buried my own niece of 11 years of age 2 years ago because she couldn't face the inhumanity of the world that she had to live in. The many murdered, missing Indigenous women is only the tip of women's struggles. Here she is.
Hello.
One of them.
Hello.
And so I'm sorry, first on myself, for not having been able to do the work as quickly in my life to wake up and heal some of those wounds within our men's culture, and to make space for you women to do your work safely. I'm saddened that even today we still have this dialogue and this need to make space for each and every one of you. My heart breaks when I have to bring those young men in and explain to them how much power and privilege they have in their very young lives compared to their sisters. So all I can do as one old man, as I did today, is try to give you some space to be heard. Like that man asked, what does the Indigenous knowledge say about this? The Indigenous knowledge says, listen to our aunties. Listen to our grandmothers. They have been telling you this for generations. Make space and heal the women so that we can start to heal our communities and create our culture. Initiate the young men. Disconnect them from the Nintendos and the videos that tell them to be gangsters, that teach them to have violence in their hearts because it's the only way they can feel powerful. Make time for them on the weekends and evenings. If men would do their work, it would be so much easier for you ladies. And I am sorry for that. I truly am. I know many of the men here, many men in the circle today do a lot that we can, as much as we can, to try to heal our men, to hold circles, to initiate the young men, but it's not enough. to recognize the women wounds and to recognize the father wounds. Recognize the ways I failed to not be present for my partners, for my children, my grandchildren, my granddaughters,
Ugh.
my nieces. For me, this is about an internal transformation. The world has gone on and will go on for millennia. It's whether or not we will as a peoples. It's time for us to come back to being one-hearted. Oh.
Ipswa, thank you so much.
Thank you. You made me cry. Thank you. Thank you.
Catherine, I see your hand up. Would you like to speak?
Yes, but I need a little, give it some room. What a sacred and beautiful thing you spoke.
I will take the moment then to mention that Lion also, about 15 years ago, wrote an apology to women. And he did a beautiful job. Not as beautiful as this seemed to me to be. And I hear you, Ipswa. Thank you so much. One heart is what you mentioned. It is through the heart that we find our healing. The vision that I was given and the naming of it speak to spaces where that kind of training can happen. It's called Our Heart Gardens. It was, the idea was inspired by successful surgery done by a crow upon a worm. And what I realized from seeing that was that the many hearts of the worm work together to support the organism. And that is what we need to create here on Earth, on our Mama Gaia, is the connected heart of the one that we are. Pulling back from the natural world, creating our own natural world from the resources that she has given us. We need to withdraw from her wild spaces so that she can heal herself. And she will. And we can give her a help and honor her. And we can start to sustain ourselves. This is what we have been designed for when we're finding our way forward. We are Pan, after all, or the Green Man, or the one we are, or we all, or all it is, I don't know. We have it in our hearts. The plan and the pattern is there, and we are moving into it. Catherine, are you ready for us now?
Yeah, I think I just meant a moment of silence to honor how meaningful that was. But Sally, I wanted to respond directly to what you said, because there was a day, a couple of days ago, where Eve Ensler spoke at length about the theme of apology and also kind of like what our hopes are, often as women in the aftermath of just, resenting, naming, waiting for repair, some sort of something, to just like the young Olympic gymnasts who confronted the doctor and got to speak their piece about what had happened to them and their feelings about it. I mean, that's just one example because there's so much that's happened worldwide. And I find myself with mixed feelings about this because I don't personally know Lion and he's never done a thing to me. And so even as heartfelt as some of these are, which I think do honor the imbalance between the genders in our culture, I sometimes wonder, like, I sort of feel often that that I was taken advantage of without my ever knowing, because the people who held the levers of power just absorbed what, whatever bright idea I had or whatever solution I had or whatever service I gave them. And then they took advantage of it. It was an extraction kind of exchange. And for them, it was just another day in the office, so automatic, And I feel also that children in our current culture are taught to kind of take their mothers and their elders for granted, or to just blow them off entirely. But anyway, so I just wanted to say, Sally, specifically to you, that there was a really beautiful, I'm sure you can access the recording of Eve Ensler, because she was abused by her father for many years. So that in particular had to do with formative years, sexual abuse, distortion of the psyche, and then all the genius that it also unleashed. And how she came to peace around it. And of course, she's launched 1 Billion Rising and all this other amazing work to raise our awareness to the suffering of women around the world. I sometimes wish just like a regular guy in my life would say, wow, I'm sorry I did that. Like, I'm sorry I abused your privacy. I'm sorry I took advantage of your body without your permission. I'm sorry I cornered you repeatedly. Just the kind, these I'm naming like innocuous everyday experiences. But I will say that as a woman with a PhD, white privilege, like all the trump cards, seemingly, it has eaten away at my self-esteem, my sense of like, can I step out? Like literally, can I go anywhere and do anything without a mansplaining or someone stealing my idea and fabricating it, throwing it on a website that night, and publishing their ebook in 5 minutes or whatever. So I'm that's just something that I'm acutely aware of, is that in my lifetime, I have not experienced a man who came toward me and said, I really messed that up for you, or you're right, I really took advantage of you in this way. So that I'm just going to name that. I remember one time being acutely aware of the race issue, and I really wanted to go to like a Black church where I've often been nourished and sort of go, I'm so sorry about like what people my color have done to people your color. But I talked about it with a friend and she was just like, it doesn't work that way. Because you're just one gal. So I think that the point I'm trying to make in this discussion is really about, or this dialogue is really about, my experience of when something really touches me, I feel like there's some personal thread that really matters. Like it's a person I know who is taking responsibility for ways they've mistreated me. I guess that's what I'm going to say. And no, I have not experienced that.
I hope you do. I hope that
I-
happens for you.
Yeah, I have once or twice. I don't want to be categorical about it like that, but in general,
So one of the tools that Indigenous bring to the table is a form of reconciliation, restorative justice. And what I know to be true of the challenges that we're trying to address in this humanity rising is how do we heal between these conflicts? So I spoke a little bit about the mother and father wounds that many of us carry. So earlier, there was the conversation of women are waiting, to be asked to step in, and there's a correctness in some of that. And I also invite to recognize the woundedness that so many men carry. And so the only thing I know is as a leader to begin that healing is for us to individually and collectively take responsibility for those impacts. Right, to collectively and individually own what has put us out of discord. Right, there are no victims, perpetrators. That drama triangle disappears in that circle of truth, collectively and individually. For me, if that was the one thing I could offer today, as a tool for all of you, in the invitation is most of you I judge to be very conscious in this journey. Don't wait to take a place. As much as it would be beautiful, it could be that way. We're not in that reality in this moment. There are not enough of us outside in that container. Share the responsibility on both sides. There are many men who would love to hear from the women, from the pains they carry as well. So we have to be the ones that start that conversation. Whether we carry those wounds or not, I carry a lot of wounds from my families of origins. And I have done much wounding. And that last part, which we have talked about indirectly, is just even recognizing the era of the time. And sometimes in restorative justice, collective social healing, we have to recognize that we each might have 2 or 3 pieces of the pizza, but there's 3 or 4 of those things that we inherited intergenerationally. And even just the era of what's going on in the planets, the cosmos, that we're just a little blip on. And what it does is it removes shame, guilt, fear, and it restores enoughness. So that's what I try to do in our circles. It's what I try to do with the young men. It's the only way I know how to find a way to go to that question, which is how do we find peace? How do we bring a lasting peace? Is to restore those things and to take account collectively and individually. Recognizing that I may not have wounded Catherine, I may not have been that man, and yet in some way, as an elder, as a leader in the community, I failed somewhere in my role and responsibility to educate those men, those young men somewhere in their life. And I'm sad for that. And I'm hopeful. I have seen so much great work. I've had the fortune of traveling many, many places across the globe. And I see so many of these well springs like this circle here. And what I think the myth that people forget is there's more of us than them. We're beyond a tipping point. It's just what will it take for us to sit in honest circle, take account of what has not worked in the past, take collective responsibility, and then go to those young children and ask them, what kind of world do you want us to shepherd in for you? How are we as collective adults and leaders failing to create the world that you need to live in? And so that's my last and closing thoughts. I have to actually go and do some of that work now in the physical world over here. I just want to let you know how much I love and appreciate you all. Some of you I've had a couple connections with in other circles. Some of you maybe the first time today. I hope that if you see me somewhere I'm blind, please tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, Grandpa, I know you from somewhere. And I'm hoping that as much as you can be, that you're all safe and as well as you can be. And I'm just sending out some love to you and all of our communities.
Have you left your email address with us?
I have not, but I'll post it again before I depart.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ipswa. It's been an honor and a privilege to be here and be a recipient of your words and your heart. I see Chantel has her hand up, and I don't want her to miss saying words to you. Please, Chantel.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of tears right now. As you're speaking, it felt like the question was, has anyone been, like, have we been, had an apology from a man? And what was coming up through me is that that apology needs to be heard and forgiven. Right? So to say, like, I hear what's in your heart and forgive you. And ask to, like you mentioned that words matter. And then I heard, like, I failed. And I'm like, oh, this inner, like, please don't carry that. That burden that I feel all of us carry in different ways. Whether, because that masculine energy is in all of us, as is the feminine. So our feminine side is wounded and our masculine side is wounded. And when we, like, I think it just feels like, whew, what if we can unclench that? And lately what's been coming to me is this tightness, this clenching and pain is like a seed. And this is the shell. And inside is love. And that tension and that pain covered that love to keep it safe when it needed to. And that our tears and our love is telling that shell it's okay now. And that it can open. And the love that's inside of us can then flow. And so as long as I'm carrying that tension, then I'm holding that love inside of me. And yeah, just like the synchronicities and the situation that brought me to here today is just blowing my mind. And I have no doubt that we are on an incredibly beautiful path and that it's already emerging, right? It's already here. And it's just opening to it, not really creating it, but opening to it. And yeah, thank you.
Stan.
This has given me this today but today especially, I'm thinking about my life and how I have hurt women, and I've been pretty not bad. I can't think of too many things that I have done. What I'm looking at, however, is a great history of emptiness. I was born into a Jewish family. I wasn't born into a religious Jewish family, but I got the stuff of Judaism that kids had to get in order to get to be 13 and have a bar mitzvah. Thinking about that entire body of thought that represents Judaism and the various documents that Judaism has created, there's something missing. It's a great big hole. There's nothing in there. I've always wondered, why do I dismiss Judaism? I say, well, those people are. I have very little affection for Judaism and most of the other religions that I'm familiar with, and I'm not familiar with very many, but because they seem to me to be simply a tool for the priests to run people's lives. It occurred to me a couple of weeks ago, while we were talking about stuff, that the first of the 10 commandments says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And I go, wait a minute, I never thought of that before, but what the heck does God, a universally contrived contraption that has built everything, controlled everything, and is 100%, what does that God need to have worry about having other gods before me? What, I mean, that's a thing that had to have come from the priests. It didn't come from God.
I would like to invite Sally to weigh in on this.
Okay,
Hey, lovely Stan. We love you, and you are such a lovely man.
thank you.
You are. Yeah, no, we're looking at the mistranslation, and I've been working on with Stephen Pope translations from the ancient Hebrew of lots of different things, and we're currently working on the Gospel of St. John, but I have his translation of the 10 Commandments, and I'll send them to you, Stan.
Okay.
But the actual "thou shall have no other gods before me" translates as something like, "Thou shall have no other external god but thyself."
Really?
It's an internal. The actual translation of the 10 Commandments removes any external god. And the second one is the graven image, which is, "Thou shalt not create any false surfaces to project your gods onto, because they're internal." And it goes on, and actually the first three, if you break any of the first three, you break the rest. But there is no external god in the original translations. And the same with John's Gospel. It reads like a science manual. It's incredible. So I really hear you when you say there's a hollow void, because the teachings are there and you're taught they're so important, but we're not taught the realities. So the Gospels work in all four worlds. So there's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they're the physical, the psychological, the spiritual, and the divine. And you're supposed to approach them. So the story of Exodus, I've said this before, so sorry, Shannon. The story of Exodus, you have Pharaoh being given in Israel, Moses being born in Israel and coming out with all the Philistines, of all the tribes, and Aaron and Miriam. And you're supposed to be taught that those are all aspects of your inner psyche. So Israel is the child that you are. The Pharaoh is your egoistic teenage adolescent self. And then you become Aaron, Miriam, and Moses. And then you go through all the dialogues with the tribes, which are all aspects of yourself. And the wars are all internal wars. And you cross the Red Sea, and then you have 40 years in the desert and all the temptation. And Moses never gets to the promised land. Mm-hmm. He's still on the journey, and he never gets there. And we're not taught things like that, because when you do that as a group meditation, it's a really transformative, transpersonal, psychological experience. And we get nothing of that. We get nothing. We get the outer political shell that is left. I'll send you them. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. So you're recognizing a void that should have truth, and there's nothing there left.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of that I know of is, "Thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother," and it doesn't say anything about honoring the women. It doesn't say anything about how young men could be made aware of their position in humanity. I mean, what I got out of my religious training, which is, I didn't get much, but whatever I got didn't have anything about taking care of the planet. It was honor God. Okay. Oh, we have to pay it. What the?
I like to break in at this point, Stan. Thank you so much for bringing this up, because Sally, I really feel that this is important information for everyone to have. It's not often that the gods interfere in our physical world in a tangible way that we can say, God did that. And two plaques of stone with words written on them is kind of real. So if you could send the translations to the AfterChat, to the chat people, I would like to invite people to have that information in their lives. And I'm going to take the opportunity at this point to mention the other two stone pieces that were given. The first ones were formed and written by the hand of God upon a mountain. Well, I found two stones that were woven together by inspired words, and they were put in that place, in the places where I found them, on purpose by Mother Earth. And it was a bad day, and we were talking about the same old things. And as I was going along, I said, that's enough. Let's talk about something different. And I planted my feet. And as I looked down to take my next step, and I just said, going forward is what I said. And I looked down, and there between my toes was a little round rock with an arrow on it pointing forward, like Gaia agreeing with me. And so I laughed and I was inspired. Well, going forward, there, and I pranced a big step, and then I pranced another big step, and I said, there shall be what? And I stood on one foot looking for the rest of the statement, because I knew there had to be one. Otherwise, why would I feel like this? Going forward, there shall be what? And I looked and I looked and I looked, and there, right in ahead of me, off the curve of the path, in amongst the rocks and the weeds, I had to go forward. I couldn't be it. There I found a big round rock with a peace sign in it, created by Mother Nature over eons of time and placed right there so I would find it. Going forward, there shall be peace. We might have to look for it. I'm really honored to be able to share that with you. I'm glad to be in this conversation with you, and I have to go. This has been a really, really good conversation. Thank you for being here and a part of my life.
Lovely to see you, Shannon. What I will do is send a radio link to Stephen talking about his work himself. And it's a Unity radio link with Maggie Whitehouse, but I'll find the link and send it on to Stan.
Thank you so, so much. And thank you all for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, it's Saturday tomorrow. See you Monday. Have a good weekend. Bye.
So Sally, I had never heard two things that you said today. One was, and it's very logical, before there were men, there were creatures that didn't reproduce the same way that we do now.
Well, we all evolve on different phylum and trees of life, and on our particular tree of mammals, there are no male creatures before 300 million years ago, and they're the platypus, the echinidea, and one other that I can't remember. And the platypus and those Australian marsupials developed Y chromosomes at that point. So that's the first emergence of males on the planet, which kind of accounts for lots of our parthenogenesis stories and our enunciations and things like that. But it's a deep memory of that. But I wasn't suggesting there were no men at the same time. The first humanoids are what, 2 million, 3 million years old maximum, and they will have been male and female by that point. But the earliest
Yeah, well, it makes some sense. You know, we had single cell animals that created themselves,
Yeah.
and they didn't have male and female. It makes sense that they didn't. They were self dividing. They would divide and reproduce that way. And for us to have a creation story that starts off, God created a man. Wait a minute. Why would he create a man first?
But he would, and
Only it reinforces my thought that this stuff was written by priests.
Could you think it was a mistake?
a genetic, well, it could be a genetic dead end, but it's taking rather a long time to prove that. So. Although, yeah, no, so there's lots of stuff like that. And the link for that would be just things like Richard Dawkins' Ancestor's Tale has a really clear kind of evolutionary path to follow.
Not familiar with any of this stuff, so thank you for
It's lovely to see you. It's so nice to see you, and
nice to see you. I mean, you seem healthy. I know you've been ill, so I'm so happy that you're here.
Yeah, no, I've not been so much because I've had to go back to work a bit, and it just clashes with times.
Mm-hmm.
But I pop in and I watch, and I still go on other networks. So you know. Okay.
Well, that's where you'll find the links to the various programs you asked. Where do I find the apology? Well, it's right in there. It should be on the list.
No, I need to go back. I've obviously not clicked and double clicked, and I'll go and find it.
Well, on the left side of other networks, one of the things is you can click on it. It says the index to all the Humanity Rising pages, and that comes up with a chart that lists all of the months, and that's one document with every single one of the Humanity Rising episodes listed.
Wow.
Down 365, 366.
I've still got your emails with red flags in my inbox. That's what I've been looking. So if I go to Humanity Rising, I'll find them. And yes, Leo, it's a different Stephen Pope, but it's quite an interesting coincidence.
I would suggest anybody wants to hear a bit of indigenous wisdom. Yesterday's AfterChat in the second group, the second show, had Chief Phil Lane and Constance Buffalo. And she gave us quite a beautiful lecture, I guess we could call it. I don't know the right word for what it was. It was lovely. And I would suggest anybody wants to see what she had to say. It was fun. It was Phil Lane and Constance Buffalo. I'm terrible with names. Anyway, and Jack in the Box. And Sally, you might not know Jack in the Box. He's been a relatively more recent occurrence in the AfterChats. Quite amusing and crazy as a loon, but he's been everywhere and he's done everything, and he won't stop talking about it, even though he keeps saying, "Oh, and I should stop talking." He doesn't.
I will have a look. And
Yes.
It's been an incredible week. Thank you so much for your hard work, everybody. I'm going to go and have something to eat before the next session now.
Yes,
I want
it's coming up in an hour.
I want to say something. I would like to say something in terms of the comments made by Catherine. It moved me deeply because that's me. Touches the question that I struggle with. Sometimes to come to the place that you almost feel apologetic about being male.
Thank you, Ed. I cried a lot during the thing. I could see Linda crying as well.
Thank you.
Look, so much love to you. It's so important to have the dialogues and to share. Oh, you're making me cry again now. Thank you, Ed.
I feel that thank you, Ed, for saying what you said. And I think, in a sense, in our Western culture, we're more afraid of emotion than just about anything. Because I feel that in my experience, because I've been the victim and the victimizer, I've run the bases, as they say. And I really do feel that it's so hard to take a moment and just think, who have I personally hurt? And that whoever we hurt, they're hurting too. And so I feel that reconciliation is so powerful, because then we can stop the hook of, you did, yeah, it's your fault, I need an apology and I'm waiting, that's sort of a harumphy way to walk through life, which sometimes we must do for, a sense of justice. But I love what you said. And I've had some wonderful relationships with men, wonderful men in my life. Present company might be members of that club. So I felt it was important to name it, because I have been really blessed by some lovely men in my life. And so I don't want to bash men, and get on this big thing. But I think I wonder if we're just afraid to feel what we feel when we say, I'm sorry, or I appreciate you, or I forgive you. Because I really think that we've trained ourselves to have a tiny diet of love. I really think that one of our biggest fears is like, how can we live with the amount of love that's actually available?
We continue to grow. And after I was married for 61 years, when my wife finally died, she died, there are still thoughts about what could have been different. Where did the conversation stop? Where could we have gone further? And how is it informing my life now?
I would love to hear that from you. That not in this, not in this public forum, but just know that like, that is just one of the deepest concerns of my heart, is just like, how do we dive into the pool of our own experience of love? And that's really all I care about. I know that sounds really saccharine. It's not meant to be, because I think that real love can be devilishly difficult. And it takes real courage to ask those questions. What am I missing? Like Stanley, just sort of going like, screw this. The words of my religion don't reach me. It's like, okay, so that's a total
It
miss.
seems incomplete. It doesn't include the kind of information that I would have benefited from as a youth.
That's right.
To be able to understand what my behavior was about. And I'm not talking about very egregious things that I've done, but the attitude that I have had to overcome about women could have been part of my religious upbringing, but it doesn't exist, as far as I know.
I think there's been a very uncomfortable divide between religion and personal love, for a long time. So
Right.
I was really touched by some of what Sally brought forward, because the early writings in their original language had such potency. And I've had my similar walk with the church. And, first I read Elaine Pagels, that helped. And then I came across some translations of stuff from the Aramaic, and that really helped. So, those were hints for me. And I think like the heart has its own radar, and you have to like go into the difficult places and go into the places where the words do reach you, they do touch you. And I think we lost a lot in translation along the way. And, maybe it's perfect. Like in astrology, they say that the Piscean age is all about the kind of priestly classes, and the upper classes kind of being custodians of secret knowledge and practices. And now in the Aquarian age, you know, those bolts are coming off, and we have the capacity for the deep truths and the deeper resources to flow. And we're just coming into that. But anyway, I think, you know, I just find myself as someone who gravitates toward whatever takes us a little closer to what's really in our hearts. So, Ed, wow, I bow to you today for, you know, sharing something so precious from your own life.
Thank you. And thanks, Sally, for her insights.
Yeah. I too am gonna I got some green beans over here. I gotta go do my thing. But Stanley, I'm gonna thank you again, because you just show up for whatever happens, and sometimes I can make it, sometimes I can't, but it's just like a sea of jewels that flow through this particular salon you have.
Yeah. Well, I just wrote to Jim, and I wanted to brag a little bit and say, you know, you've been doing 367 episodes. At episode 60, I started collecting the AfterChat. I have 300 AfterChat recordings. I hadn't thought about it until just like yesterday. Wait a minute, we started at day 60. We're now at day 367. And I did this every one of them. I know that my server has almost a terabyte full of videos.
We need another life.
Fortunately, I have a subscription to a service that has a little infinity sign next to my storage size.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't care how much I put there, but oh my God, it's been a lot of fun. And Jim wrote back, I wrote him that he's my hero. He wrote back, you're my hero too. And that was very, very touching that he would acknowledge the contributions that both of us are making to perhaps a historic event. And that's what he said. You know, you're keeping all this stuff, and it could be historically useful at some point.
I keep thinking it's going to be the basis of a new religion, and it's going to be Saint Stanley and Saint Jim. And 400 years from now, the archives will be open, and it'll be us doing horrendous damage to the future. But no, it's bloody brilliant, is what it is, Stan.
Oh, thank you.
Theology.
Lion said something today that I had never heard before. Also, he said that the coming of the next Buddha will be women.
Oh yeah, right.
I heard him say that, and I never heard that before. But I have for many years been telling people that women are the savior of the planet.
Yeah.
And that came to me 30, 40 years ago. Women are needed. We need, and there's this savior of the planet. And I've had some people, when I put that in the chat, women are the savior. I get back, man, what are you talking about? Well, I still think it's a sensible thing to think from my perspective. We need the women.
Well, I think that when we're looking at, for example, the Jesus figure, I think the more modern and a more progressive way of looking at it is the Christ, and not just the gender Jesus.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it can't be just a woman. It's all humans.
Exactly. One of the Roman Catholic churches here in town ordered a sister who is also an artist and a sculptor to make a crucifix of a female figure. As a matter of fact, we have another one in one of the universities in Toronto, where that created quite a bit of a discussion when the female figure was displayed as the crucified Christ. And I think we have to have a whole different understanding of that word Christ, you know. Like Jesus from the limitations that it imposes.
Well, it's not his surname, is it? It's the Christos and the logo.
Exactly.
And also what crucifixion is, because that is kind of freaky looking.
Hey, I wanted to respond to remarks by Stanley and Sally. My career was in religious education, and there's a thought that we should not introduce the word God to children because they're concrete thinkers, and they hear God and they think of God as an external entity, and it takes a long time to mature into a deeper reality. Sally, I'm looking forward to encountering your Stephen Pope, because I think you were, I resonated with your approach to scripture, that scripture is not external either. When we read scripture, we have to enter the story and become all the characters. The Exodus story you mentioned, but all the characters, we become, those are internal to us.
Yeah. Right.
And that's an Ignatian approach to reading scripture. And so it changes from a child's perception of God as something external to the interior journey that we all must take. And scripture being wonderful maps to that journey. So I look forward to learning more of Stephen Pope's works.
He's wonderful. And the Gospel of St. John that we've been doing, you come in as the Jonathan body and become the Yehoshua body, and then the Jacob, and then Rachel and Leah come in, and you have all this, but you come from the Magdalena as the a priori, and it's just a revelation in itself. And yeah, I've been taught to read it on one level, but this is it's really, it's kind of made me rethink a lot of my attachments to image and word.
And the links I put in is a different Stephen Pope.
Yes, I've seen.
So by coincidence, there's some similarity in content.
All these popes around on the internet, lots of internet popes.
I put in chat, Ed, so good to see you. To see your restored health, and yours too, Sally. This has been a great day to have a reunion with each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's lovely to see you too.
Can I ask, is there, I have a hard time reading where I am right now in my life, and Sally, I was wondering if there's audio in some form.
There are some. There's two. I know of two interviews that I'll send both the interviews to Stan, and if that's helpful, Stan, am I giving you more work?
Well, that's fine. I mean, you can put them to the chat action.
Okay.
List.
Yes, that's good. Okay. I will do that.
And with a note to me, this stuff should also be included into other networks, because we'll make whatever it takes space for it to be there.
And he is running teachings online as well that are group teachings.
Yeah,
so
and Linda, I don't know, are you on the chat action list? You're probably not. We formed the chat action list last year when we realized that the chat people list goes too full of stuff, too much. So we made an action list, and for those people that didn't mind getting a lot of stuff, and
we need 2 lives.
Huh?
We need 2 lives to all of that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
When I look at my library around me, I already feel guilty.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, what are we going to do with all this stuff?
All this stuff, right? My wife says if I go before her, she's just going to put it all in the dumpster. And my daughter says the same thing about my wife's stuff. And well.
No, it is wonderful to be surrounded by books. But it also just raises the question, how much of that knowledge that I've gathered in terms of book form is really being part of my life?
Yeah, well, I have a tendency to understand a book by its cover. And I mean, Here Comes Everybody. I didn't have to read the whole book. The title of the book says what there is. Everybody is getting to be on the internet. Here comes 5 billion, 7 billion. It was written, there was only 5 billion people at the time it was written 10 years ago. Now there's 10 billion or 8 billion. Here comes everybody. Well, we're all going to try to talk to each other. Oh my God. But it's interesting because in the past, we were only able to learn from dead people. You go to the library and there they are. They're all these dead people. Now, we got everybody we could. But there's not enough time to deal with everybody. Hello, Susan.
But if you're
You're speaking into nothing because your microphone is off.
Thank
There
you.
go.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. First of all, I've so enjoyed this, and I started listening while I was doing other things, but have really enjoyed the conversation. So 2 quick comments. One is about having a personal library, which certainly, Ed, I can see you do. And I myself have 10 boxes of books that are being sent to me in my new location. What I love, and this is an edited collection, what I love about that is that they're books that you share with people, or they're books that you come back to. So they're like these weaves of stimulation, information sharing. So that's why I keep them around. And the, I don't know what that is, but I could, but the second, right.
Yes, right. Okay.
Exactly. You know, I should tell you that one of my early games in the pandemic was to try to zoom in. Oh, Seamus Haney. I spent 9 months in Ireland, had to come back early because of COVID. And I should tell you that the Seamus Haney Book Club was one of the joys. You know, I'm sitting there with everyone else who's Irish, who knows his work in depth. It was gorgeous. But anyway, the point being, yes, that there are all these marvelous books, and that when we share them with each other, just as I heard being done now, they become points of connection. What I was going to mention about the crucifixion is 2 things. I really was interested in what was being said about degendering Christ.
Yes.
And there is a book by Philip Pullman called The Good Christ and the Scoundrel, no, The Good Jesus and the Scoundrel Christ, or vice versa. But, you know, he's a Cambridge professor, and also the author of his Dark Materials, which is extraordinary trilogy. And so, but what he's writing about is that difference. But I love the idea of degendering Christ. And in terms of the crucifixion, I follow Buddhist teachings, and one of the things I've felt about that is that Buddha found enlightenment under a tree. He didn't get nailed to one. So, and because the crucifixion to me is so connected with original sin, it has been connected to that. Christ died for our sins. We start out in a deficit state, in debt. And so that was just the comment I wanted to make about that at the end of this lovely, lovely conversation.
Tucson Libraries, Peter County.
Whoops. Let me turn off.
It could also be interpreted, I think, in terms of total service.
What can be interpreted as total service?
The crucifixion.
But it's total, so I guess for me, certainly, and you know, you can offer yourself to be eaten. You know, and I guess, you know, there are many interpretations, and I was raised in a Christian environment, and there's actually a Christian monk, Brother Stendhal Dat.
Yes, I know him.
Who works with Buddhists and writes about Buddhism. And so that vein of Christianity, I certainly appreciate, but I just completely reject the connection between the crucifixion and original sin.
I totally agree.
Yeah, that's all.
You were talking about gratefulness.org.
Pardon me?
You were talking about gratefulness.org.
I was talking about gratefulness.org. What is that?
With your brother that you mentioned just
David
earlier.
Stendhal, that
Some rats.
yeah.
Simon,
yeah, his books are many different places, and I was actually introduced to him through his connection to Buddhism. But yeah, a lot of deep spiritual thinkers come out and are rooted in one tradition and transcend it and connect. Yeah.
I find Richard Rohr
Rohr. Richard Rohr.
Richard Rohr, R-O-H-R.
There's another really lovely interpretation of
Yeah.
crucifixion of it. Obviously, Vav.
Okay.
Coming of the cosmic Christ. Yeah.
Where's that coming from? No, you have the idea of the tree in the temple being Asherah, the lady in the temple,
Okay. Yeah.
being the wood, and Vav being the nail. So it's the nailing of flesh to spirit. The metaphor is the crucifixion is the nailing of flesh to spirit. And I love to think of it like that.
Okay.
I think that is lovely. It would be nice if that was what was taught us. That's it. You know, my battery is running low, so I need to go plug it in. But I should say that I'm only an occasional participant, but I find these after chats really so informative and rich. And again, what Jim is doing and these sessions are phenomenal. I think V is one of the most brilliant public figures today. I've heard her speak in a number of different arenas, and to hear her as part of this and what's been around it. And so I'm going to be going back and listening to more of the previous things.
Are you getting my emails every day? I have an index to all that material, and I send an email every day that lists today's material and a link to all of the past 367 episodes of Humanity Rising. Send me your email address and you'll start getting that material.
Okay, Stan, how do I send you?
You can
my
put your email address in the chat.
Okay, I'll do
You
it
can
right
do it
now.
as a direct message or as a to everybody.
Okay, great. I'll send that to you right now. And I did hear you say earlier that you had been recording over 300, and that is a rich trove.
Of these after chats, I have 300 of these conversations.
Yeah, and so the idea that you would then be able to weave through the other, because it's now risen in a priority for me to pay attention to this. You know, one can only focus so many ways. But so thank you all for everything you have done and do now. And this is sort of like a morning dessert.
Dessert, yes.
Say, Susan, one more comment on, and I know Sally had a comment too, on the crucifixion. My 4-year-old granddaughter has an aversion to our Catholic crucifixes with the body. And so we went into a Lutheran church without the corpus. And so she may become a good Lutheran, but and so she may have an intuitive feeling about that iconography. But my simple answer to why did Christ die was to prove his humanity, his perfect humanity. All humans die. Jesus dies. The crucifixion shatters the dualism of God and us, and I think the crucifixion verifies his humanity, and that's essential for us to get past the dualism that
totally right.
we create.
Within Christianity, I should just say that in Buddhism, there's the Four Noble Truths and then the Eightfold Path, and that an awareness of death and is part of all of that, and of suffering and of coming to awareness. And so and I love whatever your granddaughter becomes, she will be a sensitive being, because the body hanging on the cross, that's the thing. And I was raised with a Catholic grandmother, and going in and seeing the tortured body on the cross with the blood coming out of the forehead, it's like, and then and I remember seeing a cartoon book that the two little children are standing there and being told that it's their fault, that that Jesus died for their sins. This was part of the catechism. Jesus died for their sins, body on the cross. And so they have to take that on. Yeah. And it was an Irish Catholicism, so it was masochistic. It wasn't like a Mediterranean Catholicism that you just go do what you want to, and then you get
Then you get frozen.
Froze. Somebody froze.
I
Ed,
just
you-
like to say,
Ed-
I just like to say some of my best friends are men.
Yes. Okay. Okay, this has been deep. This has been deep.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, and you're saying that the interpretation of "Thou shalt not have any other gods before me" goes to the heart of what I have been believing for a very long time, that it's all here and we're all one.
Yeah.
And this idea of an external guide that's, you know, that invented everything, and we have to pray to that other thing because that might come back and help us.
No, you were right all along. You
We're
really-
living that lie. We're living that lie. We're making our new car becomes the same kind of story. Everything that we eventually purchase and that gives us some kind of satisfaction. I think the way in which we invest our interest in things rather than the stuff of the spirit. I think that's where the multiple gods are coming in. They come in by the hundreds.
Well, there are thought forms, aren't they? It's like the fish. The loaves and the fishes are thought forms and nourishment. So we're constantly battling that. The other nice thing about words and ancient texts is that they're considered to be the link between the psyche and the spirit. So the words themselves are yeah, what are they? They're a vehicle in themselves.
And
They're
what you just
a
said-
pointer. They're a
Yeah,
pointer.
link between psyche and spirit, and I can't understand that because I don't know don't have a good definition for either of those words.
Okay, a link between the psyche and the intellect.
Psyche.
So your psychological state or your emotional, a link between your emotional intelligence and your thinking intelligence. You can put it like that.
Okay, yeah, because I don't know if I recognize any emotional intelligence in me. I have intuitions. I believe I see things. I mean, I have been envisioning a vastly improved world for over 50 years.
I think that's our gift.
In which people are helpful to each other and take care of each other.
That's our gift. That we see
And
it.
this is your language format here. We're living in your language paradigm.
You're living in my acid trip from 1969. Okay, where I heard the words whole earth catalog and I said, well, what we need is a whole earth catalog of people. And I've been working on it ever since. And this is an extension of that acid trip.
Oh, you're not
It's
lying.
weird.
You're not lying. That's nearly as good as the original translation from the ancient Hebrew of the way, which is Derek. I've been signing myself off Derek recently for the amusement, but the translation of the way, of the divine, is actually Derek. And who knew? What's
Derek mean?
It means the way, as in the spiritual way of the divine. But it's just generally it's a boy's name, isn't it? And it's always something.
Okay.
I've been quoting all week a 1936 book by John McMurray, The Structure of Religious Experience. And he's very critical of Cartesian dualism. And that includes thinking of spiritual as something apart from our universal human experience. There's no separation. And so that's an old book, but I find it very helpful in destroying the dualistic thinking that so many of us are prone to.
Holistic thinking is being challenged in many, many ways.
Yeah. And his word for religion is interdependence. And he talks about the world, there's only one universal human experience, and out of that we organize it different ways. And there's three ways: are science, art, and religion. And he talks about a religion, and again, he has a very broad understanding of what he means by religion, but it integrates both the scientific and the artistic ways of organizing our human experience. But it comes down that religion is about, its interest is about mutuality, the relationship of people to people.
Yes.
And or people with anything else, any kind of interdependence. That's religion. And he himself was got disillusioned with church religion because they could not accept his pacifism, you know, what he experienced in World War I. And so he didn't become much of a churchgoer, but philosophically, I think he lays a great foundation for rethinking what do we mean by religion? And if it's creating a separate spiritual world apart from our human experience, it's a false religion. And so anyway, I offer that.
Well, the evolution of religion is a really fascinating thing. And I tend to think it's linked to memory and then the ability to predict the future. And when humanity realized the sort of implications of death, that's when religion comes in as a form of hope for the future.
Yeah, I think McMurray takes it even deeper. It's about our relationships with each other. It's that.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's that simple and that comprehensive.
But also,
the Jesus story is all about.
Yeah, it's
I think
such it's
Jesus-
another 8-hour conversation. We can't do sound bites on this one.
Well, if we go deep enough into the indigenous traditions or any of the great world traditions, but it's a matter of going deep enough to find the beauty and the truth.
Absolutely.
And without that exploration, we end up with superficial and stereotypical summaries that are not accurate.
No,
Yeah,
they-
but without death, there is no nourishment, and that's something that we've forgotten in our present time as well.
no, when you see that it has been misused for authority and power, then that makes you sick.
That's part of our apology needs to include that dark side of religion.
Absolutely.
The apology is an interesting one because there's a lot of women who are also reinforce the patriarchal system in a kind of Stockhausen syndrome way.
Look up the works of Simone Weil, W-E-I-L. She has a lot to say about apology and anyway, she came up in some of the talks this week.
Oh, she's fabulous.
Yeah, she really is.
Right, I'm going to get some food before I log on to the next final.
So good to see you again,
It's
Sally.
lovely to see you guys. And lovely to see you, Ed, and meet you, Ed. So,
Thank you for what you contributed. It was amazing. Thank you.
oh no, it's just lovely to be here, and thank you, Stan, as normal.
You're welcome. I just want to summarize my opinion of why we're here.
Yeah.
We're here to observe, to be part of, to bless, in a way, to praise the universe. That's what we're here for. We're the receptors of whatever is because you represent the curiosity that the universe is endowed with.
Which is a wonderful gift, just to have the curiosity.
Yes. Thank you all. I'm going to end the recording and because otherwise we'll just drivel on and on and
Before
on.
you end it, Stan, you're here to be helpful. You forgot to say it.
Of course. Well, we're here to be helpful. Yes, I will say it. And helping each other is the most important thing we can work on, because
Well,
otherwise we'll never get to the age of helpfulness unless we start being helpful. And that's what's coming. We're coming to the age of helpfulness. I was thinking, well, maybe how long should it last? Well, maybe at least 1,000 years.
Yeah.
See, biblical text, you're putting down biblical equivalent, you're putting down religious tracts here in digital format for the future.
And I think we live with hope.
Okay, lots of love, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you in virtual space soon.
Thank you. You're amazing people. Wonderful. Thank you. You're gifts in my life.